a lot of advice out there on how to build your online business. But a lot of it assumes that maybe you don't have a busy job or somehow you're in this magical bubble that allows you to work 40 hours or 80 or 100 hours a week on building your online business. But what do you do if you have an existing job and a family that you need to continue to maintain and support while you're building your business on the side? That is the exact situation that I was in a few years ago when I was in my really demanding, really good job with a great salary, but I wanted to do something that was more fulfilling and impactful to me and gave me more freedom and control. So I decided I'm going to figure out how to do this. It has to be possible. There has to be a way. I'm not going to leave my job first. I am going to build my business to replace my salary before I turn in my notice. And what I'm going to be sharing with you today is how I figured out how to manage my time to be able to do that. So the number one thing that you have to realize is when it comes to managing your time, building your business on the side while in your job, is it's actually not about making more time. When I started out, I was only able to dedicate about 5 to 10 hours a week to work on my business because I had such a demanding job. And so I had to figure out, how do I make the most of this time instead of trying to wake up earlier or sleep later? I tried that. It didn't work because then you're so tired and exhausted, you can't do anything. And so I had to figure out, with this limited time that I have, what do I focus on to actually move my business forward? So I want to make sure that you realize it's not about finding more time. It's about taking the time that you have. And if you have just 30 minutes a day during the week and an hour or two on the weekend, that adds up to 5 hours. And that's all you need to get started, because that's what I had. So after realizing that, I had to figure out, what exactly do I need to be doing with my time? Here's what I realized. When it comes to building your business, it's not about, especially when you're starting out, it's not about having the most perfect website or having the most perfect technology, emails, all of that. There's a time and place for that, absolutely, but not when you're starting out. So I wasted way too much time on that in the first few years of when I was trying to start an online business. And guess what? I did all of that and I got no clients. So I said, okay, this isn't working. Let me try something else. And so instead, what I actually ended up focusing on was finding my clients wherever they were. At the time, my clients were on LinkedIn, were in Facebook groups, depending on which business we're talking about. And so that's what I went. And the majority of my time, I only spent on about 3 things. The number one thing where I spent in the beginning, I would say maybe 80 to even 90% of my time, was on creating content. I'm a very step-by-step person. So I literally marked my calendar. I found some places where my clients were hanging out, and a lot of them, like I said, were on Facebook groups or on LinkedIn. And I marked my calendar. I said, okay, day 1, these are the places I'm going to be. Let me share a piece of content with all of them. And so what I did was I went out there and did exactly that. And then day 2, I marked my calendar again. I said, okay, here's a new piece of content. So that is how I was able to, in about 30 minutes a day, sometimes less, share the content that I needed to share. Then what I did was the remaining about 10% to 20% of my time, I focused on engaging with people. So I would go up to their questions that they were asking that I could answer. So when I was doing digital advertising consulting, I was answering questions about ads. When I was doing career coaching, I was answering questions about careers, resumes, interviews, things like that. And I would just answer them. And sometimes that would be it. I would answer it, no one would respond to me or even thank me, and I would just say, okay, that was that. Sometimes though, that person that I'd helped would say, wow, that was so helpful. Or they would ask me another follow-up question, and that would lead to an actual conversation. And what that would do is it allowed me to get to this place where I was talking to people. We would bring that out of that forum or that place or that group into a conversation via email or Messenger or Skype. And eventually, for some of those people, I'd have a call with them because they'd ask, hey, I would love to learn more about how you can help me more. Or I would say, because I'd answer some of their questions, hey, I love all the questions that you're asking me. I'd love to talk more about how I can support you further. And so those would become sales calls, making it very clear, hey, we're not hopping on a call to chat. There's no switching bait or being salesy or pushy, but let's talk about, if you want this because you're asking me all of these questions, let's talk about how I can support you further. And so we did that. And that's the only 3 things that I spent my time on. At this point, I didn't have a website. When I was doing digital advertising consulting, I didn't have a website. I spent all my time talking to people, helping them, engaging with them, creating content for them. And that's how I was able to actually eventually get my first 5 clients without a website. Because think about it. When you're first starting out, people aren't coming to you and wanting to work with you because your website is gorgeous or because you have all of these testimonials or you've been featured on all of these big name publications. Nobody starts out with that. You get to that point, absolutely, but nobody starts out with that. And so what are they going to see? What are they going to want to see to be interested in working with you? They're going to want to see your content. They're going to want to have that relationship with you. And this is how you build it. So that's what I focus the majority of my time on. So that's the second thing, focusing my time on the right activities. Now, the third thing is, how did I organize my time? Here's the thing. This is what happened. When I first started out, of course, I didn't have any clients. So all my time was on content, engaging, and talking to people. That's it, the things I just talked about. And what that looked like was knowing myself. I knew a couple of things. I knew after I came home from work, I was going to be tired. I wouldn't want to be having to do a lot of thinking. So if I try to leave my heavy lifting like content creation at night, I wouldn't do it. I tried that many times. I would just sit down and watch TV. I also wasn't a morning person, so even if I woke up early, I would just be sitting there super, super tired, to be honest. So neither of those things would really work well for me. But I knew on the weekends, I could definitely set aside an hour or 2 on the weekend to create my content, to do my mental heavy lifting, as I called it. So this is what I did. I thought of every single week as kind of a ball rolling down a hill, where during the weekend, I would do the hard work of pushing the ball up the hill, and that was content creation. So I would batch create my content. I would write out as many posts as I could for what I needed to do and share during the week. So that during the week, it was like that ball rolling down a hill, where all I had to do was post the content that I had created, maybe create 1 or 2 new pieces of content, but then I could spend the rest of my time finding people who were asking questions and engaging with them, because they weren't being as active on the weekends anyway. So I might as well use that time for myself to recharge, to create my content, and then I can be back at it during the week. Because it's a lot easier to answer questions than to have to sit there and create content. At least it is for me and for most of my students, because it can just be you get you in your head, it's time consuming, perfectionism gets in the way, you're wondering, can I really do this? And so that's what I did. Again, just think of that mental image. Spend the weekend pushing that ball up that hill. Whatever that looks like for you, prepping, creating content, all of that, batching your content creation. And that only needs to take an hour or 2 during the weekend. And then during the week, when you only have a few minutes here or there, guess what? It's a lot easier when you have 5 minutes, when you're on your commute. Pull up, for me, it was, like I said, Facebook groups. Pull up and search the questions that you can answer. So I would search for things like ads, landing pages, click-through rate, things that related to what I do, and answer questions, or what I did at the time, and answer questions about that. And what that allowed me to do is, even if I had 5 minutes, guess what? I was working on things that mattered in my business. Sometimes 5 minutes is all it takes to give a good answer to a question that has them responding and engaging with you. So that's what I did. And that's what got the ball rolling down the hill, so that I would do it again and again every single week. And that's what made it easy for me, so that I was able to really compress my timeline and eventually get it to this point where, here's the thing as well. Once you have clients, once you build momentum in your business, you magically find more time to work on your business, because guess what? It becomes more fun. You are seeing it happen. You are getting paid. It becomes more exciting. Your friends and family start supporting you more because they're seeing it happening for you. And because you have someone who is paying you, a client, depending on you to show up, guess what? You're not going to not show up. And so this is what happened. In the beginning, I would just do maybe about 5 hours a week, create that content, batch it on the weekend, engage, talk to people, and that would be it. Great. Then as I built momentum and I started getting clients, I would do client calls either in the evenings or on the weekends. And I would somehow magically find the time, because guess what? When you have a client, you're going to make time for them. I've seen this over and over without fail with the thousands of students I've worked with. It's going to happen for you too. You're not going to let them down. And what that does is you have one client, okay, maybe you do one evening call. You have a second client, maybe you start moving your calls to the weekends. You have a third client, maybe you do 3 calls in a row. And what happens is you start slowly to see it happening. It's becoming possible. There was a point before I left my job where I was working with, I believe, about 8 to 10 clients because I had scheduled it out. I'm not saying it was easy, but that's what allowed me to build a business that replaced my salary, that hit 6 figures in sales before I even turned in my notice. And that's how I did it. I wasn't wasting a lot of time on fancy funnels or systems. I didn't have any of that, to be honest. Even when I made 6 figures, I didn't have any of that. All I was doing was repeating the steps that we just covered, so that I was focusing on the things that mattered. I was building true relationships with my clients. I was working with my clients in a way that helped them get results and continue to build my brand and show people that, hey, I'm legitimate. I can actually help you build my name recognition online as well. And that's what allowed me to be able to do my business, do it while managing a very demanding job, and to do it in a way that allowed me to not have to burn my boats and leave my job without knowing how I was going to pay my bills in a few months. That's how I was able to do that through the things that we talked about. So it's not complicated. I'm not saying it's easy. It does take hard work, but it doesn't have to be complicated. I really hope that at least you take away from this not to waste your time on the complicated funnels or technology when you're starting out. Again, there's a time and place for that, but it's not right now. It's not when you're starting out. It's not when you've got all these other demands from your job, your family, your life. Now is the time to be focusing only on the few things that matter, so that you can actually get clients, get results, and build that momentum in your business. So that by the time you're getting to a point where you're like, okay, I do need more time to work on my business, guess what? You've got clients, you've got money in the bank, you've got an audience of people who know you and who are excited and want to learn about how they can work with you, and you're turning in your notice with steady income, steady clients, cash in the bank. It's a completely different scenario. And so the last thing I did, like I mentioned, was to hold off on all the fancy stuff, the things that I knew I would eventually have to do until I had built up enough income in my business to be able to turn in my notice and then work on that full time. So I like to think about it as side business activities and full-time activities. So side business activities are the things that you need to be doing right now. Full-time activities are things that can wait until you've gotten enough income in your business and you can work on it full-time. So those are the big ahas that I had that helped me build my business from scratch to 6 figures before I even left my job. I hope you found that helpful. I hope that's given you a feel, an idea for what you can do. And you don't need to get to 6 figures before you leave your job. Some of my students just want to have 3 consistent 5K months in a row, or 8K months, or whatever their income goal is, and that's it. And guess what? That's going to be less work for you than what I described, because you don't need to be as OCD as I was about making sure I was replacing my salary before I turned in my notice. So that's how I did it. That's how I've helped at this point thousands of students do it as well. So hopefully you found this helpful. Now, the thing is, when it comes to coaching your clients, I want to make sure that you are structuring your package in the right way and not wasting your time on spending too much time preparing for your coaching calls or supporting or delivering. Of course, I want to make sure that you're giving your clients value, but there's a way to do it that's efficient and that maximizes your time as well. So make sure you check out the tutorial I've got for you on that, on how to structure your coaching package, what to include in it, what not to include, and how to make sure that you're being super efficient so that each client is not requiring 3 hours or 5 hours or 10 hours a week for you to support, because then you're going to be stuck overwhelmed. You're not even going to want to get more clients because it's going to feel so impossible for you. So make sure you go ahead and check that out. And I have one more thing for you, which is a really great PDF on how to build a six-figure online coaching business, the high-level strategy, so that you know the benchmarks that you want to be hitting so you can see how it's possible for you. That PDF is over here. So again, if you are wanting to know about that, make sure you check that out. That's all I've got for you today. And if you found this helpful, make sure you hit subscribe so that you're notified every week when I release a new training on how to build your own online coaching, consulting, and course business that allows you to break free from your 9 to 5. Thanks for watching and for being here, and I will see you next time.